Hi, this is Enki35 and I'm making this video today because I wanted to address some questions that have been asked of me by this person by the name of OnlyMyPOV. He asked me several things today, but this is on my video, Satan's Family, The Greatest Deception. What he has addressed is that he's just trying to figure things out. He stated that it appears you believe the Israelites' Bible as true, but don't believe the prophecies about a Redeemer and a new covenant with Israel. This is confusing to me. What do you believe the Old Covenant is about? Well, first of all, what I do is I look at each individual religion as an individual religion. And what one needs to understand is that the religion of Judaism, although it is the parent religion of these later religions that came after the fact, Christianity, they have attached their religion onto Judaism, which what one needs to understand is that Judaism is not the religion of the Christians. And so what needs to be understood is when I'm doing this, I am literally looking at each religion individually, not one that has been melded together as they state, the rabbis state, that the Christian religion has superglued their books onto their Bible, which is called the Hebrew Bible, the Jewish Bible. So what the Christians believe is not what the Jews believe. This is their religion. This is about their people and their history of what they have written for their own people. And so what the Christian religion is that it has taken from their writings and has interjected their belief system in and has changed it into something that the Jews do not even believe at all. They don't even have any of these beliefs within what their prophecies are. They tell you what their prophecies mean, which people should actually listen to what their prophecies mean to them because it is their writings. This is what people need to understand. But when the Christianity, if one studies about how Christianity came about, when they ended up putting their prophecies, taking their prophecies, like one of the famous ones is Isaiah 14 or Isaiah 7, 1 through 14. If you notice, like in Christian religions, and just so people know that I'm not being biased against anyone's belief. I don't want anybody to think that that's what I'm doing. I'm just pointing something out because I do comparisons. That's what I do. So when you see the Christian religion attaching themselves in certain ways and stating that these things are prophecies, well, the Christians believe that these are prophecies because it was told to them that these are the prophecies. And they believe that this is supposed to be about a coming Messiah, a Redeemer, and that it's supposed to actually be Jesus. Jesus is supposed to be the Messiah, the one who died on the cross and was supposed to have risen again and all the stuff. But according to the Jews' belief, they aren't talking about a God-man. They are talking about a literal man, a mortal man, who is going to come and literally reign over Judah. And Messiah and or Redeemer and all that stuff doesn't mean the same thing as it means to the Christians. It means just an anointed one. There's many anointed people in the Bible that God used for his purpose according to what has been written in what the Christians call Old Testament, but what is written in the Jewish writings, which is called the Tanakh. So I'm I'm making this video because it's easier for me to just explain this talking to you instead of typing to you. So this is why I'm answering you this way. When I am doing the comparisons, especially when it comes down to Satan's family, the greatest deception, I am using the comparisons of whom the people would believe is Satan in the Christian religion. So I do a comparative analysis of who he would be. And I explain what I'm talking about in my video. But as for Enlil, who is a destroyer, he's a lord of the command. He is the lord of the wind. He cast his lot for the earth, which means he was cast to earth. His lot was cast. He became the ruler of the earth. So he has children, and his children are the equivalent of one side. But so the comparisons that I'm doing of the Christian belief system, since they have a dualistic type belief system because of the fact that they think that Satan is so powerful that he actually has so much power that God can't stop him to take over all these people's souls, and he's out running amok and he's trying to get people to, go to hell. No, I do not believe that, not one bit, because I believe that God, the creator of all, I'll say the creator of all, has control of everything. He is the all. He is the one who would have control over every single thing there is, even Satan. So, in the Christian belief system, they state that, there's going to be a war, and this war is going to have to do with the battle against Satan and God, as if Satan could actually have that much power. I mean, what does that say about God? It's just ridiculous, because if the creator of all that created all things has to fight against a foe, I gotta tell you, that just does not make sense to me. It's nonsense. So, to me, and the way that Christians believe is that, and what I see, especially with the fact that Michael's supposed to step on Satan's head, they're supposed to fight, and Jesus is going to, fight the enemy, and the angels are going to come back and fight. Well, this is something that's already happened. When you see the depictions of Michael stepping on Satan's head, that is actually, Michael would represent Jesus, especially in the book of Daniel. But also in the Hebrew Bible, with Yahweh slaying the dragon, which represents the chaos, or Satan. Some people, think it's Satan. Well, that would be like Michael. So when you see comparisons of even older tales of the Babylonian Satan outside of Christianity and Judaism would be Marduk defeating Tiamat. He slays the dragon. So all of these religions have eventually been distorted in one way or another, and have been twisted to fit their own ideology. Because what people need to understand is that if you want to find the source of the first religions in the world, you go back to the ancient Near Eastern religions, and you look and see what the peoples were doing and exactly what they represented, what the gods represented to the peoples from the beginning. And most of these people, although they are dogmatized, and there's been a lot of proselytization, they don't understand. They don't want. It's either they don't understand, or they just do not want to see that these things were actually taken from the place that they love so much, called Babylon. And these ancient tales have to do with these gods called Anunnaki gods. And so, like the tale of Adam and Eve, those are in the tales, which I plan on actually discussing once I have time to start making the videos and putting them out. But the stories of Noah, and they tell you who they are. And so when one recognizes what the people were doing through these empires, because there were a lot of empires and wars and kings, and you have to understand who they are. And then especially when it starts getting compacted, like after the Persian Empire was taken over by the Greeks, and how they were just completely just compacting, all these religions started coming into the vernacular with everybody. And so it started causing all these ideologies floating around, started making different sectarians. And they started going this way and that way and this way, and people just started going, oh, well, I'm going to believe in this and I'm going to believe in that, and they just started spreading out. And even the Jewish sects were having problems within their own thing, because some of them came out of Babylon because God had sent them there according to their own text, and he sent them there to prosper and all this stuff, because he did not want them worshiping the Canaanite gods. And so he sent them to Babylon so they would prosper and have women and stuff. And, it's a really deep subject, because you have to recognize the writings when these things were actually written. And so because of the different ideologies coming in through the time with all of these people, the Hellenists, the Maccabees, the Essenes, the Gnostics, the Christians, just the Romans and their belief systems, but they were all compacted. And the Jewish, let's not forget the Jewish, religion just was all compacted together, and they all started, some Jews went to Hellenism, and then you had the Gnostic Christians. Before Christianity was ever even a national religion, it would have never been a national religion. It would have just been another cult sect like the rest of the sects of the Gnostics. So the stories in Isaiah about how they try to pick and choose, like, which stories are supposed to be about Jesus, and how they make their inferences with like the virgin instead of the woman and stuff. I made a video about this called "Is Jesus Emmanuel the Answer?" And in that book of Isaiah 7, 1 through 14, and as you notice, they only go like so many verses. They actually don't read the context. If you ever listen to a pastor or something, they never read the full context of what the story's actually about. They just go, oh, look, there's Jesus. He's right there. But they never go through the full context of the story. And it's actually talking about a war. It's not talking about a redeemer. It's not even a prophetic prophecy, except for the fact that they are stating that their lineage is going to continue through the prophet Isaiah, and a king is going to come forth from Ahaz called Hezekiah. But they want to make, these things into a prophecy, because they have to literally hold on to something, because it's their belief system. You can believe what you want. I'm just letting you know so you aren't confused, because it is very deep. And when you understand what Christianity's doing, and like there's another verse, Isaiah 53 is talking about, it's talking about the wounds in the hands, or the suffering servant. There's Zechariah that talks about the wounds in the hands. That's about a false prophet. It's not about Jesus. It's about a false prophet. But they proclaim that these things written in Zechariah is about a false prophet. They proclaim that this person would be hated in Isaiah 53, and that they would be hated throughout the world, and scoffed at and mocked and all this stuff. And people actually think that Jesus, during the time that he was alive, that he was scoffed and mocked, but people loved him. They loved him. And they still love him today. That's why there's 2 billion Christians. So that doesn't look like somebody that's actually hated and despised, okay? But what the real instance of what the Jews were talking about was the fact that they were sent into exile and they were dispersed. Because this is what they're talking about, their history. They were dispersed and they were hated. Even to this day, they are hated. And so that suffering servant that they are talking about has nothing to do with one man. And because of the fact that they say him or he, doesn't mean it's just a singularity. It's talking about a nation, because that's what they're called. The thing is that has nothing to do with Jesus at all. It had to do with them suffering by being dispersed and put out into foreign lands. And they're hated even to this day because of propaganda. And that's another thing that people need to understand, is propaganda. Now, there's huge conspiracy theories going on. It's absolutely ignorant, in my opinion. Because when you read the history, you'll see that it's not true. You'll see what was going on. You'll see who was the persecutor. And the persecutor is the Christian church. They have persecuted these people, taken over their religion, have killed 50 million people, yet they take over their religion and then try to say that they deserve everything they get because they killed Jesus, who is the Lord. Are you kidding me? Why would God have to die? Give me a break. In any event, it's so ridiculous to me that, especially when you understand, it's pathetic. They have caused more harm to the world, and everybody blames the Jews. Everybody blames the Jews for everything. And it's really sad. It's actually hideous. Totally hideous. Yet they are using their history to take from them what God said was rightfully theirs with his covenant to them. It was to them, not anybody else. They don't try to go around and proselytize people into their belief system. But you see, the Christians constantly do it. They think that you have to have every last person saved on the face of the earth or else God's not going to come. That's absurd. And people believe this. I can go on and on and on, but it's just really, really sad when it comes down to the Christian church and the authoritative indoctrination by the Catholics. And so people try to, I will say this, people demonize the Jews so much with their own, they are the ones, this is what blows my mind, is they are the ones who wrote this for their people. They didn't write it for the Greeks. They didn't write it for the Romans. They didn't write it for anybody else. But here they are, this is their word. And then they have rabbis, which would be called the authors, the authorizers, and the authoritative sources from the men that contemplate what their religion is. And just like the Catholic Church is the authority over the Christian Church, you have the rabbis who are the authority over their writings. And so people say, oh, the Talmud's evil, and it says this, and it says that. Well, you know what? These men contemplated on what's right and what's wrong. And these are called interpretations. These aren't like literal, like scriptures. These are just interpretation, the Mishnah, the Gemara, and all that stuff. But you guys, well, not you guys, I'm not going to say you guys, but a lot of people don't understand their religion, which is obvious because, I mean, if you did, you wouldn't like have this bias towards them. But Christians, you'll hear a lot of people, oh, they're evil. Oh, that's evil. Oh, that's sick. They just don't understand. The Catholics don't have authority over them. The Pope doesn't have authority over them. Why? Because it is their religion. And no one can change it. They don't believe in Jesus Christ. Because that to them is called idolatry. Why is it idolatry? Because you aren't supposed to worship a man. Because God, in the Bible, states that he is not a man. And of course, God is not a man. How could the supreme creator of all be a man? How could the cells that run throughout our body and the grass and the earth and the stars and the sky and the gases and just the animals and the plants and the water and the fire and the water and the earth be a man? I don't think so. But I just was wanting to answer you because, I appreciate you telling me that you trust my information and you believe that I'm being honest. Yes, I am being very honest, and I appreciate that. I am not one who holds bias against people unless they're very rude. I mean, I don't like rude people, but what everyone needs to understand is that I'm doing comparative religion because I'm going through history to find out how things link together, where it actually stemmed from, how it actually correlates together to write history, because it's important that people get it right. There's so many things that are twisted, and people just don't understand because they have to seek. People don't even understand about Gnosticism. They can say, yes, they understand the Gnosticism. Yes, they do. They understand what it means. They understand the cult. They understand the occults. But when they try to relate that, like in the sense that some people try to state that, let's say, Saturn L is the God of the Bible. No. No. It's incorrect. And they're taking all this to try to join it together by doing an incorrect, as a matter of fact, comparison, which I plan on actually pointing out in a future video because it's so divergent. Anybody that has any knowledge knows that it's divergent, especially scholars, especially historians that see when it was written, why it was written, where it was written, who wrote it, and how it was written. So, in any event, I hope that answered your question. I hope that brings some understanding to you. Maybe I'll do a series answering people's questions because I haven't really been uploading lately, but maybe I should do that. Just start answering people's questions that ask me. But anyway, only my POV. Thank you for the question. I hope it helped you to understand what I'm doing and understand the differences between the religions, because that is something that is very important to understand without a bias, without a dogma, without any boundaries that hold you back from learning the truth in history. So anyway, I hope you all have a great night, and I will be talking to you all soon. This is Zinky35.